Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and my page. So I'm back out here in Hollywood. I just got finished with my internship for today. And I do want to give you guys like a quick update on where I'm at in the program. I know it's been a while since I actually did a strictly PhD blog update. So I'm like, let me come and do this quick update. It's been a lot going on, you guys. Alright, so you guys are not going to be able to hear me right here. So I'm just going to let you guys check out my view so I pass all of this noise.
Tell them what's the real. Tell them that I'm real. They trying to make it deal.
Out here in Hollywood. Okay. You guys see? Today's kind of been a little bit stressful for me because I had my supervision with my supervisor at my internship site. And he loves to talk. It was like 2 hours. Alright, I'll tell you guys in a bit. In a second. Hollywood is like always turned up. What's up, Fred? I see you. It's light. Okay, now you guys can hear me. So, yeah, so like on Wednesdays, I have my supervision meeting with my supervisor at my internship site where I work at. And y'all, when I say this man, he loves to talk. He loves to talk. Now, he knows a lot, you know, of course, about the field, psychology, and what it's like being a psychologist. He's been a psychologist for over 20 years, so he is the go-to guy, definitely, to ask any questions about the ins and outs of being a licensed psychologist. He's actually from New York, which I like. Both of my supervisors, they're both from New York. What's up, Fred? And they're great. They're really great supervisors. You know, I'm learning a lot. I think I want to get off this busy street because it's so busy out here. Alright, but he also is affiliated with UCLA. So this man, you know, he's pretty good, right? He's like, knows a lot. And it was funny because like our supervision meetings are always funny, I guess, because he always has some interesting story to tell, you know, during the meeting. And he's like, we were talking about confidentiality, you know, and being careful, you know, not to violate science rights and confidentiality. So I was asking him, I was like, I wonder, you know, how does that come into play when you want to, you know, promote yourself as a licensed psychologist, and on your website you have a testimonials page, you know? Like, what does that look like? Is it okay to use client names? Do you get them to sign a release so that you can use their name for testimonial? Is that even the common practice amongst psychologists, you know? Because I've seen doctors do it. Like, one of my favorite doctors that I've been following, I look at him as a mentor, is Dr. Daniel Amen. And I noticed, like, on he has a lot of client testimonials, you know? But I wonder, I mean, is medicine any different? I would think that they would have more stricter rules in medicine for medical doctors, especially, you know, when it comes to regulations like that. But he has, like, even video testimonials of his clients. So I'm thinking, okay, if they are able to do it in the context of medicine, why can't we? But he kind of warned me against me. He was like, so what do you mean? You want to show yourself off as a psychologist and brag about how great of a psychologist you are, and da da da. He was like, I don't think that's a good idea. Now, mind you, all of his advice, I think, stems from, like, he's all about taking precautionary measures. He's all about taking precautionary measures and making sure that, you know, you take the road that is basically the least restful, I guess. So that, of course, like you don't, it's so many, the thing about being a licensed professional, you know, by the state, is like you do have to be careful with your moves and what you do, right? So I think he's kind of operating from that, or thinking from that perspective. Just it's better to be safe than sorry. But I'm like, you know, I'm a different kind of person, and I like to, not that I'm flashy or show off, but I think that's how he interpreted it. It's like, oh, so you want to just show off and you want to brag? And I was like, no, I'm thinking about, like, you know, once I'm licensed and I want to create a documentary, you know, about my clients and allowing them to kind of tell their story through documentary format. I don't know if you quite understood what I was trying to say, but it's pretty much what I was trying to say. So that was my supervision. It went great. And today, actually, around about this time, like, we are in the process of doing midterm evaluation. So as a practicum student, you know, like, we have to get evaluated by our supervisors, and they have to share the evaluation with, I'm gonna go to the park if it's open. I'm gonna talk to you guys before I go home. But they have to share the evaluation with our school, right? So I was talking with my other supervisor, because it's like I said, it's two of them. Both of them are from New York, you know, and they've been in the business for over 20 years as psychologists. And so I'm talking to him, we're doing my midterm evaluation, and he's like giving me all of these positive remarks on my form. I'm like, thank you. Like, he was like, oh, I bet you didn't know that I have that positive stuff to say about you, huh? I was like, wow, thank you. He was just saying all positive things about me, my progress so far as a psych intern, you know, psychologist in training. And I was like, thank you so much, you know. That means a lot to me, because you have people that, I think sometimes people like to highlight the negative, you know, but he was focusing on all the positive things that I do and that I bring. Is it open? So I was happy. Oh, ouch. It's like I was happy about that. And I'm like, wow, look how fast time is going by, you guys. Like, I can't believe it. How fast time is going by. And on my ride back here to Hollywood, I was just thinking, like, I'm like literally halfway. Oh my gosh, these kids coming to the park, y'all. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up real quick. But I'm thinking, it made me think, like, wow, I am getting really close to finishing this program, and I'm like halfway through. The program is 10 semesters, and at the end of the summer semester, I would have completed 6 semesters. 6 freaking semesters, you guys, already completed. So I am just so happy. I'm thankful that I'm making progress, and there's great progress in the program, and I'm still here, you guys. Like, I don't know if you guys remember when I first started doing these vlogs about my PhD experience, like back in 2016, fall 2016. It's crazy how fast time goes by, and now we're like already 2018. So yeah, 6 out of 10 semesters completed by August, I think it would be. I think that's when the summer session ends. So yes, I am super excited, you guys. Like 6 out of 10 semesters. That is awesome. That means only 4. At the end of the summer, I only have 4, literally like 4 more semesters left, you guys, of my PhD program. Y'all know how that makes me feel. I'm just so excited. And so this video, I kind of want to tell you guys a little bit about, like, I'm actually moving into the process of developing my dissertation. For you guys who don't know what dissertation is, it's basically a big, comprehensive, really in-depth research study that PhD students do. Every PhD student has to do it. So everybody who has the letters PhD after their name or DR before their name, they have to do some type of involved study and to produce some type of scientific results, right, of their specialization that they're interested in. So whatever their specialization is. For me, my focus is Black identity development. So my dissertation is going to be around that topic. And tomorrow I actually meet with my advisor who has taken on the role and the responsibility to become my dissertation chair for my project. Oh my gosh, kids. So I am so excited because the thing is, just because she was my advisor doesn't mean that she necessarily had to take on that role as my dissertation chair, but she decided to do that, and I'm like, yes. Excuse guys for all the background noise. Like, they don't know that I'm trying to do my video here. They're just coming in, interrupting me. But yes, so the dissertation chair is basically the person who supervises my dissertation project, you guys. And I'm just like, yes, I'm so happy because basically once I start my dissertation, I have 2 more years remaining. Like, and the dissertation, it takes 2 years to complete. So it's like 4 semesters. Like I said, 4 more semesters I have left in the program. And I can't believe how fast this thing is going by. The last 2 years of the program, I think, are going to be a piece of cake, in my opinion, because it's mainly focused on completing my dissertation, which is basically an in-depth research study. So I go out, I collect data, I do a lit review, I design my own experimental study, which I'm going to do an experiment this time because I'm going to do an intervention. I'm going to create an intervention for the African American community or African American population. You guys will see. I don't want to kind of talk about it too much, but it's going to basically build upon my current research study that I'm doing now. So it's been a lot, you guys, and I'm actually in the process of collecting data now for my research practicum study that I'm working on right now. So I will be coming to you guys with the results for that, hopefully by May. You guys will know the results of that study, and my dissertation project is going to build upon the results from that study. So you guys will see. Like, I can't wait to share what my dissertation topic, like exactly what it's going to be with you guys. For my research practicum, the topic, I don't know if you guys know, but I'll go ahead and let you guys know again that the topic is basically Black identity. It's in the area of Black identity development, but the name of my study is, what is in my study? Okay, African American Acculturation and Black Identity and Caretakers predicts implicit racial bias in children. That's my study. And so my dissertation, I can't wait, you guys. This is just like groundbreaking research. So I'm really excited, about this. And before you know it, I'm going to be done. It was funny because I was talking to my supervisor today at my internship site, and we were kind of having a discussion. We were talking about how, within our field, there's always changes happening in the field of psychology or healthcare. And he was saying how, of course, it's been this long, ongoing type of discussion where they're actually trying to make it so that psychologists have prescription privileges. At the current moment, we can't prescribe medication, but they are trying to make it so that we can, and I think that'll be great in some aspects. But he's like totally against it. He's like, no, I don't want to do that. And even if they do grant us prescription privileges, like, he's not going to take advantage of that privilege and prescribe medication to his clients, because it's like he's sure that we're gonna have to go back to school and to get extra, do extra coursework, on basically within the field of medicine, because that's what prescription privileges, like, that's what it entails. You have to have a general knowledge of biology, chemistry, physics, physiology, like all of that stuff kind of comes into play. So psychologists, our training isn't really in the area of medicine or even biology for that matter. I mean, we do take a bio basis of behavior class that we're going to be taking this summer, but like our focus is on the brain and the mind, not necessarily the body, whereas medical doctors, their focus is on the body. So that's where we differ. And he brought up how a lot of people kind of refer to not a lot of people, but I guess some people look at psychologists as not real doctors, so that's kind of interesting. Some people kind of perceive psychologists, but we are real doctors. I mean, we go through intensive training to do what we do. It's just that our focus is not on the body, it's on the mind. Although you do have some psychologists whose approach is more holistic, so they take everything into consideration when developing treatment plans for their clients. But our focus, is on the mind. Really getting into the mind, analyzing mind and behavior. That's our focus. But it made me think, like, you know what? I am interested in medicine. Like, I don't shy away from other disciplines. I feel like it's good to take an interdisciplinary approach when treating clients and conceptualizing client cases. So I'm pretty much open to, learning as much as I can, even having to go back to school for a couple extra years or months or whatever it is that they are going to require for us to be able to have prescription privileges, you guys. And I think that'll be cool. I remember, like, when I was working towards my master's years ago, this topic came up about how they actually were vying for therapists, licensed professional counselors, to gain prescription privileges. That was a whole thing that came up. And my my supervisor, his thinking is that it's not going to happen, because he's like, of course, he's been in the field over 20 years. So he's like, it hasn't happened in my lifetime, and they've been talking about this over and over and over again. He's heard it come up so many times so long ago. Like, it's like, okay, it's 2018. It hasn't happened now. It's not going to happen. But I'm like, I think it is going to happen. And he was like, if it does, psychiatrists aren't going to be happy for it. So it's really the American Medical Association, AMA, and the American Psychiatric Association, APA, who are basically fighting against it, because they assume that they're going to lose money. Imagine if psychologists are granted the privilege to prescribe medication to clients. What need does a client or a patient have to go see a medical doctor, unless they have something going on physically. But if it's something that they want treated, that's going on with them in their personal life, psychosocially, then you should go see a psychologist for that. And in terms of getting medication to treat certain symptoms, whether it's depression or anxiety or even ADHD, they would come to us as psychologists for those prescriptions. So I find it very interesting. He was talking about how, the pay isn't really going to increase as much. So if we are granted prescription privileges, how is that going to affect our pay? Because right now, currently as it stands, psychiatrists, they get paid, I think he said like $80 on average per 15 minutes. So that's like $320. What I say? $80 per 15 minutes. So that's like $320 per hour. He said $80 to $90. So it's like $360 per hour. And psychologists, we can make up to $360 per hour. You have psychologists that are charging $300 per hour for a therapy session, in private practice. So that's not much different. But I don't know what it will look like in terms of prescription privileges and how we will get reimbursed, like for scripts. We write scripts for clients. Like, I don't know how the payout looks like for that. But he said in terms of psychiatrists, they make $80 per 15 minutes. And their sessions are 15 minutes with clients. So it's kind of interesting stuff. I like it. But that's pretty much it. I'm going to go ahead and end this vlog because I'm getting pretty distracted. Oh, and speaking of distraction, I have to end this video talking about ADHD, because I had the discussion on my page. It actually started from a link that I shared about one Harvard psychologist determined that it's nothing new anyway, because this is not new information to people who are already in the field. But there's a Harvard psychologist who supposedly said that ADHD is largely a fraud. And so I shared it, and I was like, why am I not surprised? And then someone commented, it was like, oh, they felt some kind of way because they have kids who they feel, meet the criteria for ADHD, was diagnosed and take medication for it. So it's real for them. It's a real diagnosis for them, right? But I'm like, okay, that's you. And not to say that it's not a real diagnosis, but I think that people kind of are aloof to the fact that children are being misdiagnosed with ADHD when in fact that's not what they have. I feel like that is just like the go-to diagnosis. People in the profession know exactly what I'm talking about. So it's kind of difficult trying to get someone who is outside of the profession to understand it. They're thinking about it from more of a consumer perspective. And I'm like, you guys, I am in the field. I've been in this field for a very long time. So I know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's not just me, but I feel like sometimes people just get on, and especially on social media, they get on your posts just to debate. That's it. I guess because of attention. They want to be heard. They want to be seen. And I get it. He has a point, right? And I think for a certain percentage of people who are diagnosed with ADHD, is very real for them. It is a neurological disorder. There is some deficits within the brain that medication can fix. So it's not like it's not a legitimate freaking disorder, but to totally ignore the fact that it's misdiagnosed and the fact that the way it's diagnosed, if you go and look at the criteria for ADHD diagnosis within the DSM, you will see exactly what I'm talking about. I actually wrote a paper on this. You guys can go. I have 2 websites where I posted this article on overdiagnosis of ADHD in African American children. Go to dreampathways.org and go to Be Happy, my newest website.org. Be Happy. That's my research website. It's spelled BIHAPI, BeHappy.org. I will share the link below, but I shared the article where I talk about overdiagnosis of ADHD and ID, which stands for intellectual disability in African American children. And, I put the paper that I posted is a research paper. So this is all supported by research. This is not stuff that's just coming out of my ass. And I have nothing to gain. That's what I was trying to tell him. For people to argue against people who are within the profession about this whole idea of ADHD being a disorder that's most commonly overdiagnosed, that's really that's not up for debate. You get what I'm saying? That's not up for debate. You look at the criteria over time, because when I got into this field, I was trained on the DSM-4 TR. Since then, the DSM-5 has come out. So they've upgraded with the new edition of the DSM. They don't come out with a new edition every year. It upgrades maybe every 10 to 15 years, maybe 20 years. And the people who are responsible for the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders, they are psychiatrists, primarily psychiatrists and medical doctors. Psychiatrists are medical doctors, but specifically psychiatrists who compose this DSM. So, we can understand their buy-in for loosening the criteria for ADHD. You get what I'm saying? To loosen the criteria basically means you make it more easy for people to meet the criteria, meet the diagnosis, essentially. It's really not a neurological, the way they define it. It's not a neurological disorder, the way they define it in order to meet the criteria. For a kid to just not be able to sit in their seat, to not be able to follow directions, just certain little things, nuances like that, which I feel almost every kid meets this presentation. But if you look at the criteria, it's so broad that so many kids can meet the criteria for the diagnosis, which means so many kids are being diagnosed with this. I'm sitting, you guys, I'm sitting in classes where we have these case vignettes, right? So we get, a list of symptoms that a client may be presented with, right, or experiencing. And we have to come up with a diagnosis, and it's hundreds of diagnoses within the DSM. So you will be surprised. I'm not really surprised, but to me, it kind of is. It's sad, and I don't know. It's unfortunate that even in our training, it's pretty acceptable for just because someone says, okay, a kid is doing this A, B, C, D in class, then boom, immediately every student in class says ADHD. And I'm like, come on. It can be so many different other things. You have to rule out medical conditions. You have to rule out some environmental causes. It's so many different things. But because ADHD is just this glamorous disorder, it's so infamous, everybody knows about it, so popular, That's like the go-to diagnosis, and it is a neurological, it means that there is a neurological deficit in the brain. You get what I'm saying? This diagnosis is not diagnosed with any kind of any kind of lab testing. It's all about observation. A therapist or a clinician, psychologist comes in, assesses this child's behavior in the classroom, talks to the parents, talks to the teachers, gets collateral information, and then they say, oh, boom, this kid has ADHD. And it's just like, you can't make a diagnosis like that, especially a diagnosis like ADHD. Maybe depression, maybe anxiety, but ADHD is a very special kind of diagnosis that you just don't slap onto kids. It's a lifelong diagnosis. It's like a terminal illness in a sense. It's not something that can be cured. So you don't want to just slap a kid with ADHD, boom, and say they have it. And then what's the next step? Medication. You're giving kids who have a normal brain these stimulants. Imagine what could happen. But you have people that want to argue to say that, oh, it's okay that people are being misdiagnosed. That's my focus, and that was the focus of the article, where I think his name is Kagan, Dr. Kagan at Harvard, a psychologist there. He basically made that statement to say that ADHD is overdiagnosed. Not only that, but it's a fraud. It's largely fraud that's happening, and it's not just ADHD. Anybody who has a brain in this profession knows they can see clearly what's going on. Most people don't necessarily advocate for clients. They don't advocate for, good ethical standards. Usually in the profession, they just say, okay, I'm going to go get my degree, get my license, and make my money. That's all they care about. They're not really caring about the political aspect of it and how wrong it is to be making money off of people's illnesses. Not only that, but you are misdiagnosing people just to put them into a box, just to say, okay, well, they have this presentation X, Y, and Z, so boom, let's go ahead and sign a premature diagnosis of ADHD without really going deep to really see, is it a neurological deficit or is it something else that's going on? Because a lot of times it's just something environmental. Take, for example, if a kid, let's say a minority kid, African American, is in a house where there's poverty, it's a lot going on, there's abuse, there's violence, he's surrounded by all these kinds of negative things, he's not getting enough nutrition. How in the hell can a kid like that come to class and sit down and focus? He's going to get up, he's going to be impulsive, he's going to have attention problems. That doesn't mean that he has a neurological deficit. That just means that his environment is affecting him behaviorally in a way that can be corrected if you put the necessary intervention in place, and the necessary intervention is not medication necessarily, There's a difference. I just want people to get that there is a difference between a kid who is acting out behaviorally in class because of something that's going on within the home environment versus a kid who has this brain disorder, a neurological brain disorder that essentially can't necessarily be fixed. That's where there's treatment, and the most effective treatment is medication at the moment. And it's effective because when you pop a pill, it immediately begins to take effect. That's the only reason why they say it's the most effective. But in terms of the efficiency of the medication, this type of intervention, I wouldn't necessarily say that it is efficient in that way. I mean, it's efficient because I guess it's convenient. Like, if you need a kid to hurry up and pay attention, then okay, give them medication. But I don't believe in quick fixes like that, I just don't. That doesn't help really the problem. It just puts a band-aid on the problem. So yes, I'm totally opposed to that whole idea of, oh, we quickly assess kids and boom, just assume they have ADHD. I mean, every kid, you don't realize how many kids are being diagnosed with ADHD. It's just so annoying to me, you guys. They don't even take the time to do a decisional diagnosis to see, okay, what other possibilities could it be? I'm that kind of clinician where I would like to see other possibilities, but I guess, for insurance purposes, because we know we are all regulated by the managed healthcare system. For insurance purposes, you don't have that much time. When a client comes in, you have to be quick to make a diagnosis, like within the first session, if not first couple sessions, A lot of times it's just the first session you get. You have to make a diagnosis if you want to get paid anyway. And then boom, especially if you're working for an agency, you don't have 20 sessions to come up with a diagnosis. You have to do it fast. They want you to meet with the client in the first session, assess the client, and give them some type of idea of what is going on with this client, a diagnosis. You can't determine that necessarily from one session. Sometimes you can, but if you really, really, really want to be accurate in your diagnosis, it takes several sessions, you know? Why? Because a client's presentation today may be different 10 days later. So you kind of want to get a more of a general overview of what's going on with a person before you jump to conclusions and say, this is what it is. But I think, to me, hearing the person who commented on my post today kind of go back and forth with me, it kind of discouraged me in a way to see how ignorant consumers are. Consumers who buy into the healthcare system. Like, some people are very ignorant. They don't believe that there are flaws within the healthcare system. They are blind, literally blind to what's happening in the healthcare system. They think that doctors are gods. They think that what the doctor says, it goes. You know, so you go to the doctor and they tell you, you got this. They just accept it and believe it. Never go for a second opinion to go see another doctor. They just accept it as gold. The doctors, whatever words the doctor tells a lot of consumers, you know, or patients, they accept that shit as gold and they run with it. And so for anybody to tell them that, oh, you know, there's a conspiracy going on, or, you know, clients are being overdiagnosed or misdiagnosed, they can't wrap their mind around it. Not only that, you have some people, unfortunately, they can't hold the two realities together. So while they accept the idea that ADHD is a real diagnosis, they can't somehow be able to hold that idea in their mind alongside the fact that people are being misdiagnosed, you know, and that people are making money off of this. Like, this is all a system, you guys. We all work together. Psychologists work with psychiatrists who work with police officers who work, you know, with the legal system and the courts, and it's all one integrated system that's all, like, we all work together, you guys. So I'm trying to explain this to you guys, you know, it's not benefiting me. Like, I'm trying to understand, like, why people are so defensive and are so guarded from this information, as if they don't want to accept it, as if people have something to gain by telling people that clients have been overdiagnosed. There's this epidemic going on in the healthcare industry where people are just being slapped with diagnosis. Please tell me, what do we have to gain? If anything, we have more to gain by giving you a diagnosis off the bat, not even thinking twice about it and just saying, oh, you got this, you got that. Because guess what? That's how we get paid. We don't get paid unless we have a diagnosis. There's no payment without a diagnosis. So I want you guys to understand that. But I have to go. I've talked to you guys long enough. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will catch you guys later. I'm so excited that, oh my gosh, time is just flying by. Before you know it, yes, I will be Dr. Leach. Moving on. But I love my supervisor because he puts things into perspective all the time. And he's like, you know what? You got to stay humble. Through it all, stay humble. He always teases us. It's like, oh, yeah, people going to be coming to you saying, doctor, doctor. And it makes you feel good when they call you doctor, da, 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 right? But I like that he has been in the field for over 20 years because that whole mystique has worn off for him. So he can keep it real and let you know what, yes, initially it might feel good, you know, to be recognized as a doctor, but after time, and let that shit go to your head. You know, you're still a human being, you're still a person, and, you know, you have to stay humble because you're going to have all kinds of people trying to come at you and shit, right? And you don't want to definitely let that blow your head up too much, which I don't. I always try to stay humble. Very grateful, though, and of course I'm excited. You know, as an African-American woman, I feel like this is a huge achievement for me to be working towards a PhD. It's definitely a great adventure. But thank you guys for tuning in. I have to go. That's it for now. Progress is going pretty good. I actually got tickets to go to a a taping this Saturday, so I'll be catching up with you guys. It's probably this weekend I may come back and do another video. But until then, catch you guys later. Bye. Love you guys. Peace.